The forest was too quiet for dusk. Even the wind had stopped breathing. Eli Harper crouched beside a fallen birch, his boots sinking into soft moss. He'd been following a faint clicking sound for 10 minutes. Steady, mechanical, wrong. The kind of rhythm that doesn't belong in nature. Then he saw it, half buried in damp leaves, a cassette tape recorder, the old kind with red wreck light still glowing through the grime. The tape inside spun lazily, whispering under its breath. He froze. No one had used one of these in decades, yet it was recording. Eli wiped mud off the buttons and lifted it to his ear. A faint hiss bled through the speaker. "Then don't move." The voice was male, breathing close. Not through the speaker, from the forest. Eli turned sharply. Trees, mist, nothing else. He looked back at the recorder. The tape was still moving. He pressed rewind. Static screamed, then the voice again, fainter, trembling. "Eli, you shouldn't be here." His blood froze. No one had said his name. Not out loud. Not in hours. He scanned the clearing, heart thudding so loud he could hear it in the headphones. There was a strange pull, as if the forest was leaning closer, waiting for his response. He pressed play again. A new voice whispered. Quieter this time, just behind his ear. "Keep listening." The recorder clicked. The light flickered once, then it stopped recording. Eli Harper drove home with the tape recorder sitting on the passenger seat beside him like a sleeping animal. It still looked wrong there. A relic coated in mud. The faint red light gone out, but the weight of it still humming through the air. He kept glancing at it, as if it might start breathing. The forest road wound narrow between skeletal trees, their black limbs scraping the truck's sides whenever he drifted too close. He hadn't realized how far he'd walked. The sky was ink now, swallowing the last smear of orange on the horizon. His headlights cut across empty mile markers and the drifting mist. No music, no phone, no chatter, just the hum of the engine and the faint tick-tick-tick that seemed to follow. When he finally reached the edge of town, it felt almost wrong to see light again. His apartment sat above a shuttered laundromat, the kind of place where the walls remembered better days. He flicked on the lamp, tossed his jacket aside, and set the recorder gently on his work desk beside his audio equipment. Headphones, mixers, mics, cluttered notebooks filled with sound notes. Eli wasn't the superstitious type. He was a listener by trade, a freelance sound designer who collected real-world noise for a living. Ambience was his thing. Rain, train tracks, the hum of neon, people breathing when they thought no one was near. But tonight the silence had too much shape. He pressed the eject button. The tray clicked open. Inside, an unmarked cassette, worn at the edges, one corner cracked slightly, like someone had pulled it out mid-recording. The tape itself shimmered faintly under the desk lamp. He turned it over. On the back, a single smudge of red ink, or maybe blood. He hesitated, then slid the cassette back in. Static. He adjusted the gain knob, leaned close. The hiss deepened. Not white noise exactly, more like wind through teeth. Then a voice surfaced, warped by age and distance. "You're still here?" Eli's spine stiffened. He paused the playback, rewound a few seconds. Played again. "You're still here," his own voice answered faintly in the background. He hadn't said anything yet. He hadn't even spoken since leaving the woods. He sat back, pulse hammering. No, it couldn't be. Could be a coincidence. Pareidolia, the brain finding meaning in noise. He'd recorded old tapes before, recycled, reused. Sometimes magnetic residue from earlier recordings bled through. That was all. He pressed play again. This time, footsteps echoed through the hiss. Crunching leaves, steady, deliberate. Then a click. Like a recorder button being pressed. "Eli, if you hear this..." The voice cracked halfway through. It was unmistakably his own. He froze, staring at the device. The tape kept running. "Don't go back there. It's still..." Recording. The tape ended abruptly in silence. No hiss, no mechanical hum, just the quiet throb of the apartment, the faint hum of the fridge, the electric buzz of the lamp, his heartbeat thudding against his ribs. He turned the recorder off, sat in the stillness. For a long time, he didn't move. Then the phone rang. The sudden sound made him jolt so hard he almost knocked the chair over. He grabbed the phone, no caller ID, just the number 000. He answered. Nothing. Hello? Only breathing, slow, He could hear the room on the other end, faintly, unmistakably, his room. The same hum, the same clock tick, the same faint buzz of the fridge motor. "Who is this?" he asked, voice unsteady. The breathing stopped. Then the faint click of a button being pressed. Record. The line went dead. He didn't sleep that night. Instead, Eli sat hunched over his desk, the recorder in front of him, staring at it as if it might explain itself. Every hour he rewound the tape, every time it played the same, until 3:13 a.m., when something changed. The tape clicked on by itself. The reels turned. Through the speaker came faint movement, footsteps crossing wood, breathing, a door hinge groaning open. It sounded like his apartment. Then his own voice again, tired, shaking, whispering into the mic. "If you're hearing this..." I didn't make it out. Eli's stomach dropped. He looked around. His apartment was empty, but the air had changed. Thicker, colder. The voice continued. "It hears you when you listen." The tape stopped. Silence swelled, dense and heavy. The kind that wasn't empty but crowded. Eli slowly reached forward to eject the cassette. But before his fingers touched it, a faint thud came from the other side of the apartment. Like a chair being moved, he froze, eyes wide. Another sound, softer this time. A slow dragging, something brushing against the floorboards. He rose from his chair, heart pounding, and whispered to no one, "Who's there?" From the darkness of the hallway came a voice that wasn't his, yet somehow spoke through him. Low, breathless, familiar. "Keep listening." The light flickered once, and then everything went silent again. End of introduction. Eli is now caught between disbelief and dread. The tape seems to predict, record, and manipulate real sounds around him. Next section, conflict development, where he begins to investigate the recorder's origins and the line between sound and reality collapses. Eli didn't go back to the woods for 3 days. He told himself he wouldn't. He told himself that what he'd heard was just magnetic residue, a glitch of old technology. But he couldn't stop playing the tape. Every time he pressed play, something new appeared. Not every time, not predictably. Sometimes a word would stretch differently. Sometimes a background noise would vanish. Once, a faint voice, his own again, coughed halfway through, though he'd never coughed that night. He began to keep notes. He was, after all, a sound designer, a man of documentation, not fear. Entry 1, October 17th. Tape changes with each playback. Must be degradation. Investigate oxide layer. Entry 2, October 18th. Heard faint knocking pattern, 321, under hiss. Doesn't exist in waveform when recorded digitally. Entry 3, October 19th. Whisper, behind you. I turned. No one there. By the 5th day, he'd stopped leaving the apartment. The blinds were closed. The dishes piled up. His coffee went cold beside half-scribbled notes, and always, the recorder sat in the middle of his desk, silent until he touched it. On the 6th night, he heard it again, the faint mechanical click. The recorder had turned itself on. He stared at it from across the room. The reel spun. No light glowed, but sound hissed faintly. He lifted his headphones, slid them on, breath shallow, wind, leaves, footsteps. Then, a voice. "You left me there." The voice was Mara's. His chest tightened. "What?" He turned to look at his phone. No missed calls, no messages. Mara hadn't spoken to him in months. Not since they'd broken up after their last field job. A fire watch tower soundscape gone wrong. "You left me there," the voice repeated. Softer, almost pleading. He ripped the headphones off. The sound continued faintly through the room's air itself, like the walls were playing it back. He unplugged the recorder. The sound didn't stop. Morning came gray and pale. Eli hadn't slept. He shoved the recorder into his backpack and left the apartment, blinking into the cold air as if stepping into a different world. He drove to Brindle Hollow, the nearest town to where he'd found the tape. The town was smaller than memory. A gas station, a post office, and a diner that smelled of burnt coffee and tired people. He parked, walked in, ordered a black coffee he didn't touch. The waitress, a woman with deep lines around her eyes, gave him a tired smile. "You look like you've seen a ghost," she said. "Something like that," he muttered. "You from around here? Used to come through?" "Doing sound work," she nodded. "Ah, you folks always go up the ridge?" He looked up sharply. "The ridge?" Forest side, old ranger path. Nobody goes there now. Why not? The waitress hesitated. Her eyes flicked toward the window, then back. Because of the tapes, he blinked. What tapes? She leaned closer, lowering her voice. People find them, out there, in the ground, hanging from trees. Always recording, always different voices. Some folks say they're from before. Before what? The fire, 1989. The one that took out the old campgrounds. Eli felt cold creep up his spine. And people still find them? Sometimes. My brother found one. Wouldn't stop playing it. Said it was talking back. What happened to him? Her eyes darkened. He doesn't talk much anymore. Eli left the diner with more questions than answers. The morning fog had thickened, clinging to the asphalt. He drove toward the ridge. The forest looked the same, damp and skeletal. His boots sank into the earth as he followed the same trail he'd walked days before. Birds didn't sing here. Even insects seemed to avoid it. When he reached the clearing where he'd found the recorder, he stopped. There was a second tape recorder half buried near the tree roots. The same model, the same red light flickering faintly. He knelt, heart hammering. The reels spun soundlessly. He didn't touch it. Don't, a voice said behind him. He turned sharply. An old man stood there, gaunt, in a heavy coat, eyes sunken and gray. He leaned on a walking stick. You found one, the man said. Didn't you? Eli hesitated. You know what these are? The old man's lips thinned. I know what they do. What do they do? They listen back. The man stepped closer, voice low. They don't record what's around them. They record what's about to happen. You hear your own end before it comes. Eli swallowed hard. That's impossible. So's a dead voice calling your name, son. Eli's hands trembled slightly. Who made them? No one knows. Some say it started after the fire. Maybe the land itself remembers. Maybe it don't forget the screams. The man's eyes darted toward the recorder in Eli's bag. You brought one here, didn't you? Eli didn't answer. The old man's voice cracked. Don't play it here. It'll finish what it started. Then he turned and limped back into the trees, vanishing into the mist. By nightfall, Eli was back in his truck, recorder still silent in the bag beside him. He didn't want to play it. He didn't want to hear his own voice again. But curiosity is hunger, and hunger always wins. At 11:47 p.m., in the middle of the forest road, he stopped the truck and pressed play. Static filled the cab, thick and sharp. Then, footsteps, his. Then the sound of a car engine idling. Then his voice, from moments ago. At 11:47 p.m., in the middle of the forest road, he stopped the truck and pressed play. He froze. The tape was describing him right now. He froze. The voice continued. His breath caught. He'll look up next. He did, instinctively. Through the windshield, something stood in the fog, tall, still. Shadow stretched across the road. The tape whispered, "It's listening." The shape in the fog began to move toward him, not walking, not gliding, but unfolding. He slammed the truck into reverse, tires screaming. The shape dissolved into mist, gone as suddenly as it appeared. The tape kept spinning. "Keep listening," it said again, his voice breaking into static. Eli didn't remember the drive home, only fragments. The steering wheel slick under his palms, headlights slicing through the dark. A sense of being followed by something unseen, but always recording. When he stumbled into his apartment, dawn was smearing the sky pale gray. He dropped the recorder onto the table. The tape had stopped spinning, the reels tight. He didn't sleep. Instead, he began transcribing everything, every whisper, every background noise. He wanted to prove to himself that it was a trick of sound, a feedback loop, something explainable. At 4:12 a.m., while typing, his laptop microphone icon flickered, as if recording. He hadn't touched it. He turned off the Wi-Fi. It flickered again. A small audio file appeared on his desktop. Rex 001. He opened it. It was him. Typing, then the creak of his chair. Then, behind you, he turned. No, one. Just the faint red light of the tape recorder glowing again. 4. 2 days he tried to fight it, to reason, to test it. He took it apart piece by piece, laid every screw on the table. Nothing special inside, just metal and tape. But when he reassembled it, the reels started spinning without a cassette. Voices poured out anyway. Mara's again. His own, the old man's. You left me. You heard me. It hears you when you listen. He smashed it with a hammer. The pieces scattered across the floor. Plastic shards, wire, tape ribbon tangled like veins. Silence. He sank down, shaking, staring at the mess. Then, the faint click came again. He looked up. The tape, unspooled, torn, shredded, was slowly pulling itself back together. The ribbon snaked toward the broken recorder shell like something alive. He backed away, breath coming in shallow bursts. The tape wound itself neatly into the cassette again. The red light blinked once. Play. You can't stop a recording that hasn't finished. Eli's mind fractured around the sound of his own voice saying those words. He fell back against the wall, covering his ears, but he could still hear it inside his head. Every sound, his breathing, his heartbeat, the creak of the floor, was being mirrored back to him half a second late. The world had turned into an echo chamber. He screamed. The scream came back slower, deeper, not his own. On the morning of October 22nd, the neighbors heard noises from his apartment, faint murmuring, then silence. When they finally checked that evening, the place was empty. Everything, desk, chair, laptop, left exactly where it had been, except for the tape recorder. It sat in the middle of the floor, reels spinning, a new tape inside. On its label written in shaky pen. The morning began like silence pretending to be peace. Gray light filtered through thin curtains, touching the clutter of Eli's apartment, the notebook pages, the half-empty coffee cup, the shattered remnants of a recorder that somehow had put itself back together again. He hadn't slept. His body was awake only because the sound kept him that way. A faint hum lived inside the walls now, rising and falling like breath. Whenever he moved, the hum changed pitch. He stood at his desk and watched the red light on the recorder blink in a rhythm that matched his pulse. The tape inside was new, clean, unmarked. He didn't put it there. He told himself to throw it out the window. He told himself not to listen. He pressed play. At first, there was only air, the kind of emptiness that microphones catch when no one is speaking but the room is alive. Then came the sound of a door creaking open, wood against wood. A man's steps crossed the floor. Eli recognized the cadence instantly, left slightly heavier than right, heel dragging. His. The voice that followed was quieter than thought itself. You shouldn't have taken me apart. He turned, expecting someone behind him, but the apartment was motionless. Even the dust hung still. You shouldn't have put me back together, the voice came again. And this time he heard layers, dozens of his own tones over each other, like a choir of versions repeating the same regret. He shut off the recorder. The sound didn't stop. From the hallway came another faint creak. The door moving, though the air was still. He reached for it, hand trembling. The knob felt cold, wet, as if it had been outside. He opened the door. The hallway was gone. In its place stretched rows of trees, pale trunks lit by unseen light. The ground covered in dead leaves that absorbed his steps. The scent of moss and metal filled the air. The forest had come to him, or he had gone to it. He took one hesitant step forward. Behind him, the doorframe stood alone among the trees, floating like a memory of architecture. He could see his apartment through it, distant, smaller than it should have been. He heard the faint click of the recorder starting again. Walk, said his voice. He walked. The further he went, the more the world thickened. The mist pressed close, whispering. Sometimes it spoke his name. Sometimes it said nothing at all, just breathed. He found a shape ahead, a stump with another recorder resting on it. This one was identical to his, the red light pulsing like a heartbeat. A thin ribbon of tape unspooled from its side, winding through the leaves, vanishing deeper into the trees. He followed the ribbon. As he walked, sounds bled through the forest. Children laughing somewhere far away. A door slamming. A woman's voice, Mara's, saying, "Don't leave me here." He whispered to the air, "Mara." The laughter stopped. He followed the ribbon until it led him to an open space he recognized, the clearing where he'd first found the recorder. There were now dozens of them scattered on the ground, some upright, some broken, all spinning. The air vibrated with overlapping whispers, each one a fragment of his life. Eli. Press record. Eli, listen. Eli. It's already happened. He clutched his ears, but the words were inside him. One recorder sat atop a stone at the center. Its tape was longer than the rest, stretching out in a web across the clearing, connecting to every other machine. He knelt beside it. The reels turned slowly, feeding the endless ribbon. He whispered, "What do you want?" The recorder answered with his own voice, "To finish." He stared at the spinning reels. "Finish what?" "The recording," the forest exhaled. Leaves trembled though there was no wind. He stood backing away. "You're not real." "Neither are you," the recorders said together. They clicked in unison. Play, stop, rewind, play again. Each cycle twisted the air, dragging the forest through time, daylight flickering to dusk, dusk to night, back to pale dawn. The ground beneath him pulsed like a heartbeat. His shadow flickered in delay, always a fraction behind his movement. He stumbled, disoriented. The clearing spun. For an instant he saw himself, another Eli kneeling where he had just been, recorder in hand, whispering into it. The copy looked up and mouthed something. "Keep listening." Then the copy dissolved into static. He ran. Branches tore at his sleeves, but every path led back to the same clearing. The forest rearranged itself like a looping track, replaying the same sequence of trees, stones, breath. He shouted, "Stop!" Everything obeyed. Utter silence. Even his heartbeat paused, or he could no longer hear it. In that silence, he realized something horrifying. The recorder wasn't capturing sound anymore. It was capturing him. Each breath, each motion, each thought was being magnetized onto the endless ribbon, turning him into memory before he'd finished existing. He fell to his knees. The tape coiled around his wrists like thin veins of light. He tried to tear it, but it tightened. "You started it," the voice said. "You have to end it." The reels spun faster. The forest blurred into lines of shadow and silver. He heard Mara's voice again, closer, desperate. "Eli, please." "Don't let it finish," he whispered back. "I can't stop it." The red lights around the clearing flared at once. And in that glow, he saw all the recorders open their mouths, speaker grills widening like pupils, emitting a low, unified hum that vibrated through his bones. His own voice joined it, unbidden, a tone, pure and steady. He felt his chest hollow, the sound spilling from him like breath made solid. He understood then. The recorders weren't haunted. They were the haunting. Every person who listened became a new layer in the recording. Their life reduced to echo, their silence to background hiss. The hum rose until the trees themselves seemed to shudder. The ground cracked, exposing ribbons of tape beneath the soil, miles of it, roots made of memory. He pressed his hands to his ears. "I don't want to hear anymore." But hearing was all that remained of him. The world folded inward. The last thing he saw was the recorder in his hands, its reels slowing as if satisfied. He leaned close, drawn to his own fading whisper trapped inside. "If you're hearing this, I didn't make it out." The reel stopped. The red light blinked once, twice, then went dark. Weeks later, hikers found the clearing. They reported hearing faint noises, wind that sounded like words, footsteps echoing with no one there. At the center lay a single recorder, spotless despite the rain. A fresh tape inside, labeled in uneven handwriting, Rec 2003, still recording. One of the hikers laughed nervously, pressed play, static. Then a voice low and distant. "Don't move." They froze. "Eli Harper," the voice said, perfectly clear now. "Keep listening." The red light blinked on, and the forest, pleased, grew silent once more. The forest swallowed the sound. Dawn came slowly, pale and uncertain, dragging a gray light across the trees. The storm had passed, but the ground still breathed with mist, every branch slick with cold dew. For a while there was no movement, just the sound of the wind returning, timid and thin as if testing whether it was safe to whisper again. A jogger found the backpack first. It sat half open near the birch line, straps torn, zipper rusted with soil. Inside were a notebook, a flashlight, and a pack of batteries. And beneath them, wrapped in a plastic bag smeared with mud, was a cassette recorder. The red light blinked once. Then again, the jogger frowned. The device was old, heavier than it looked, caked in moss, the tape wheels barely turning. Out of curiosity, he pressed stop, then play. A hiss filled the silence. Then a man's voice, quiet, trembling. "If someone finds this, please don't rewind it. Don't play it back." The jogger's breath caught. He looked around, half expecting a camera crew to jump out, some kind of horror prank. But there was no one, just the wind threading through the pines. Whispering faintly through the leaves, he pressed stop. The red light flickered, then glowed steady again. As if resisting, he dropped the recorder back into the bag, hands shaking now. He left it there, exactly where he found it, and ran. By the time he reached the ranger station, the sun had begun to warm the treetops. He told them what he'd seen, about the strange voice and the light that wouldn't turn off. They laughed at first, then saw the look on his face. A ranger named Lydia drove out to check. When she reached the spot, the forest was silent again. No backpack, no footprints. Just a faint indentation in the moss, and beside it, a trail of small metallic shards leading deeper into the woods. Lydia followed them for a while. They shimmered faintly under her flashlight. Bits of magnetic tape tangled in roots, curled around stones as if something had been dragged through the forest, unwinding itself piece by piece. She stopped when she heard it, a faint click, somewhere ahead. Hidden behind the fog, the sound repeated, click, 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 the slow mechanical heartbeat of a recorder starting up again. Hello? She called, voice cracking. The forest answered with static. Weeks passed. The search for Eli Harper made the local paper. Missing hiker. Last seen entering Miller's Woods. His parents came down from Portland. Volunteers combed the area for days. Nothing. No body, no clothes, not even a footprint beyond the first clearing. The only thing they found was that old tape recorder. It was turned on when they picked it up. Inside, the tape was almost full. 90 minutes of faint sounds, whispers, and the noise of someone walking through leaves. The investigation team logged it as evidence. The file was labeled Rec. 2003, but the recording didn't behave normally. When the technician tried to digitize it, the waveform stretched itself, skipping sections, looping voices out of order. Then faintly, between the hisses and the crunch of footsteps, a voice whispered, one no one could identify. Keep listening. The tech stopped the playback immediately. When he ejected the cassette, he swore the tape inside had grown slightly longer, more wound than before. No one touched it again for weeks. The recorder was eventually stored in an evidence locker, wrapped in cloth, marked for low-priority follow-up. But every few days, security guards reported hearing faint noises near the box, breathing, slow tapping, the scrape of something plastic sliding across metal shelves. At first, they thought it was the heating system. Then one night, the locker door was found open. The recorder sat on the floor halfway across the room. Its red light was glowing steadily. The label on the tape had changed. Someone, or something, had written on it in faint graphite smudges. A month later, Lydia, the ranger who had found the scattered tape, requested to listen to it. She said she needed closure, said it had been bothering her dreams. She was alone when she pressed play. Static filled the speakers. Then the sound of footsteps. Slow, steady, familiar. Rustle. Crunch, rustle. Then breathing. Male, ragged. Then the voice. Lydia. Her hand froze on the desk. It's dark here. But I can see you, the recording hissed. The words broke, rewound, repeated, slightly distorted now, overlapping themselves. See you. See you. See? She slammed the button to stop, but it didn't. The tape wheels kept turning. The voice laughed. Faint, distant, wet with static. Then another sound joined it. Soft, deliberate, like someone walking toward the microphone. Each step came closer, until she could hear the whisper of breath against the speaker grill. Keep listening. The recorder clicked off. When they found Lydia's office the next morning, the chair was overturned. The tape player sat on her desk, the cassette still spinning with no tape inside. Outside the open window, the morning mist pressed against the frame like a waiting hand. No sign of her was ever found. A year later, Miller's Woods was closed to the public. Signs went up, environmental hazard, unstable terrain, but the locals still talk. They say at night, if you walk far enough into the clearing, you'll hear a faint click, like a tape starting up. Then through the fog, a man's voice. If someone finds this, sometimes it's followed by a woman's voice whispering something too soft to catch. Sometimes they say the voices overlap, like two people speaking from opposite ends of a hallway. And sometimes when the wind stops and the forest goes still. You can hear a third sound, a quiet hum, rhythmic and endless, like the forest itself is recording. A young woman hiking nearby once found a small silver object under a fallen log. She didn't pick it up, but she described it later. An old recorder, cracked but still glowing red, humming like a heartbeat. When she turned away, she swore she heard her own name faintly behind her, carried by the wind, low and drawn out. She didn't look back. When she reached the edge of the woods, the sound stopped. But that night, as she unpacked her things, she noticed her phone's voice memo app open on its own. The title of the new file read, "The story doesn't end." It never does. Somewhere deep in the woods, under the weight of roots and soil, a single red light still pulses in the dark. Patient, steady, waiting, recording, always recording.